Journey to the west and win the Shenzhou in the east. An island stretches across the vast sea, and it looks very small amidst the turbulent waves. It's like a lonely boat in the sea. If you are not careful, you will be swallowed by the waves. Huge waves kept beating against the coast of the island. However, even such turbulent waves could not shake the island at all. In fact, this island has stood on this sea for tens of thousands of years. The island is shrouded in spiritual energy and fairy light all the year round, and there are many rare and exotic animals, and there are many treasures of heaven and earth. The name of this island is Huiguo Mountain. At this time, a large group of monkeys gathered on the beach of Huiguo Mountain. There are thousands of monkeys in this large group. Old monkeys and young monkeys, male monkeys and female monkeys are mixed. Moreover, these monkeys are all crying. It seems that the monkey group seems to be experiencing something sad. In the middle of the group of monkeys, a monkey that looks very special is being surrounded by the group of monkeys. He has a pair of round eyes, round ears, a hairy face, a thunderous mouth, a thin face, a pointed beak and shrunken cheeks, and a body like a hosen that eats pine cones. Although he looks like a human, he has fewer cheeks than a human. The fur is still golden yellow, which is very eye-catching under the sunshine of the beach. Stand out among the monkeys. This monkey is the king of the monkey group, the monkey king of Huiguo Mountain. At this time, he was saying goodbye to the monkey group, and was about to go overseas to find the fairy fate and obtain longevity. My lord, the outside world is no different than our Huiguo Mountain. It is full of dangers and there are many monsters. You must be careful. The Monkey King's subordinate, the armor-med ape, was commanding him with snot and tears. Hearing this, another monkey also ordered, "That's right, my lord, it's hard to find the fate of immortals. In everything, you must first ensure your own safety before you can do anything. Our monkeys in Huiguo Mountain are all looking forward to your safe return." All the monkeys exhorted and exhorted thousands of times, and they were very reluctant to leave the Monkey King. At this time, the Monkey King's eyes were also filled with tears. He is also reluctant to give up these monkeys. He was born on a rock on this island, without father or mother, and after living with these monkeys for 300 years, he has already become as close as brothers and sisters to these monkeys. However, even though he was reluctant to part with these monkeys, the firm look in the depths of his eyes still did not fade away. He wiped his eyes fiercely with his hands, and said with red eyes, "Children, don't worry, I will go out to sea this time to seek immortality. It will take at least a year or two, or at least 10 years, and I will definitely return safely. You guys live well in Huiguo Mountain, just wait until I come back." After speaking, he picked up a tool similar to a paddle, and jumped onto the crude raft without looking back. Soon, they left Huiguotian Beach along the turbulent waves. The Monkey King went downstream, his eyes fixed on the front. I am full of longing for the overseas world. But what he didn't know was that in the clouds above his head, there were two pairs of eyes watching him closely. Seeing the monkey go out to sea smoothly, the two of them obviously relaxed a lot. One holds a fly whisk in his hand, is dressed in a Taoist robe, with a Taoist bun on his head, and his whole body exudes a white-purple fairy light. Impressively is the fairy of heaven. He turned his gaze back, and smiled at a Buddha in cassock beside him, saying, "Haha, this monkey went out to sea successfully, we can go back to meet business." Hearing this, the Buddha also smiled and turned his gaze back. Against the backdrop of the golden Buddha light, the kindly smile is even more solemn, although this monkey will still be wandering around for several years, but the plan to go west has officially kicked off. It's time for your plan in heaven to be finalized, right? The Taoist nodded, the candidates have basically been decided. Buddha smiled slightly, that's good. Now everything is ready and the only thing left is the east wind. Just wait until this monkey worships Fankan Mountain in Lingtai, and the westward plan will officially start. The poor monk will go back to Lingshan and report to my Buddha. Hearing this, the Taoist also said, it's time for me to go back and report the situation to heaven. Leave it alone for now. After speaking, the Taoist left here first. The Buddha watched the Taoist leave, and then looked down again, at the beautiful Monkey King who was advancing against the waves amidst the waves. A smile appeared on his face again. Immediately, he stopped staying and headed towards the west. After all, he knew that although the monkey left Huaguo Mountain now, he went overseas to find immortals. But to formally enter Fangkan Mountain, it will take quite a while. It will take several years just to start from Dongsheng Shenzhou and drift all the way on the sea to Nanfang Buzhu. During this time, I just went back to report to the Buddha. After all, 1 day in the sky, 1 year on the ground. Slowly fly back to Lingshan, and earn some incense along the way. When he comes back after reporting to the Buddha, he should have almost arrived in Nanbu Buzhu. This way across the sea, the waves are extremely rough, and there will be sea monsters raging. Under normal circumstances, it is absolutely impossible to successfully land on the Monkey King's raft. However, they had already thought of this. Not only did they cast spells to keep the Monkey King's raft strong, but they also negotiated with the dragons in the East China Sea. There will never be a kraken to attack the Monkey King. Therefore, the Buddha was not worried that the Monkey King would be in danger. But in fact, reading www.yuyuganshu.com, Monkey King's sea trip was not as smooth as Taoist and Buddha imagined. The Monkey King had just been wandering at sea for a month when an accident happened. This is a rare time of calm. The sea is sparkling, and from time to time there will be sea fish jumping out of the water, stirring up small waves. With the seabirds circling in the sky above, the scenery is extremely beautiful. When the monkey saw the scenery in front of him, his heart, which had been tense because of the waves, relaxed. But before he could appreciate the scenery, he saw a crack appear in front of his raft. The crack was 2 meters long and 1 meter wide, and it was pitch black, which looked very strange. After seeing the crack, the monkey was also very surprised. However, he didn't feel scared. After all, he went out to sea this time to seek immortality. I wish I could see such a fairy omen. Just a little surprised, muttered, "What is this? Did I meet a fairy?" But didn't the old monkey say that fairy fate is hard to find, and you need to be patient to find it? How did I meet you so soon? After struggling for a while, the monkey took the paddle and cautiously entered the crack in the space. And when his body was submerged into the darkness, the crack in space was also closed all of a sudden, disappearing on the surface of the sea. At the same time, in Nanfang Buzhu, somewhere in a deserted mountain, inside a thatched house, Zhou Yu, who was sitting cross-legged, suddenly heard a mechanical and clear voice in his mind, "Ding! Someone with great luck enters the farm, and the Hongmeng farm system is officially activated." Inside the shabby thatched hut, Zhou Yu's eyes, which had been closed all the time, opened after he heard the voice. At the same time, a look of joy appeared on his handsome and extraordinary face. He looked at the real system message panel that appeared in his mind, and he was very pleasantly surprised. "I didn't expect that. I just tried it casually. The system was activated all of a sudden. It went really well." That's right, Zhou Yu is a time traveler. He originally lived in a world called Earth. When he woke up this morning, he found that he had traveled to this world. Then, he was told that he was bound to a system called Hongmeng Farm System. And when Zhou Yu saw the name of this system, he immediately thought that it was a system that required him to grow vegetables or be a farmer. Later, after understanding, he realized that this was not the case. The Hongmeng farm system that I have bound to myself is actually to hire others to grow vegetables. The hired people farm, and then harvest the output of the farm themselves. Of course, the setting of this system is not so simple. There are also requirements for those who are hired. The person Zhou Yu is looking for to be hired must have a certain amount of luck. The stronger the luck of the employed, the more the output of the farm will be, and the better the quality will be. And the system notification tone just now is the reminder that the system is activated. Zhou Yu knew that he must have met the first lucky person. Otherwise, the system cannot be actively activated. The system is activated, then you can make good use of this artifact. Immediately, Zhou Yu wanted to understand the system well, or check who the system found. However, before he could continue operating, another notification sounded in his mind, ding. The system is activated, and a gift package for new hosts will be presented. Congratulations to the host, the following items have been obtained. Corn seeds x10. Hoe x1. Fertilizer x3. Zhou Yu heard the prompt from the system, and hurriedly communicated with the system to check the rewards he had obtained. Looking forward to it. Although these rewards sound very ordinary things. But Zhou Yu knew that this was a golden finger, the system. How could the rewards really pull like this? But when Zhou Yu checked and learned the contents of the novice gift package he had obtained, his brows furrowed, and a few black lines appeared on his forehead. Because he discovered that the things the system rewarded him were actually ordinary corn seeds, hoes, and chemical fertilizers. It was as normal as anything he had seen on Earth before. Originally, he thought that the novice gift package rewarded by the system must be something extraordinary. Spirit root seeds, spirit treasure, and the like. Who knew it was such a common tool? For a while, Zhou Yu began to doubt life in his heart. What kind of novice gift package is this? What are the rewards? Such an ordinary thing. This is Journey to the West. To grow these ordinary things, an ordinary farmer can do it. The system actually needs luck to plant it. You know, the lucky people in Journey to the West are all powerful, arrogant characters. Asking them to plant these, Zhou Yu was afraid that he would be beaten to death. But just when Zhou Yu was worried about his safety, the system seemed to know his worries. Immediately take the initiative to remind, ding. Warm reminder, the host can obtain system protection in the farm, and there will be no danger to his life. Hearing this reminder, Zhou Yu felt relieved. Since the system said so, there must be no falsehood. It is estimated that within the farm of the system, even if a saint and strong man comes, he should not be able to hurt himself. As for what to plant, Zhou Qing didn't think too much about it. Although the rewards looked very ordinary, after all, I didn't fully understand the system yet. So there is no need to worry too much, just follow the process of the system and try it out. Immediately, Zhou Yu communicated with the system, who activated the system just now? Which lucky person? The next moment, a system panel similar to a screen appeared in Zhou Yu's mind. In the panel, a monkey figure appeared. When Zhou Yu saw this monkey, he was also a little surprised. Originally, he thought that the lucky person who activated the system would be a person, or a Buddha or something like that would appear. After all, in Journey to the West, most of the lucky ones are these forces. Unexpectedly, since it is a monkey with golden hair. Suddenly, Zhou Yu was surprised. Because it suddenly occurred to him that only creatures with luck could trigger the system. In other words, the monkey in front of him must be an extraordinary person with good luck. According to Zhou Yu's understanding, there were only a handful of monkeys with luck in the world of Journey to the West at that time. Seeing the monkey's familiar appearance on the screen, Zhou Yu became even more suspicious. Could it be this? Immediately, Zhou Yu continued to talk to the system, "System, check this monkey's information." After the words fell, a small information panel appeared above the monkey's head on the panel. And when Zhou Yu saw the information panel, he was shocked. The original suspicion was also confirmed all of a sudden. The info panel looks like this: Name None Identity, Huiguo Mountain Monkey King Target, Sungxian asked, Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com Live forever. Seeing this information, Zhou Yu murmured in disbelief, the one who entered my farm turned out to be the protagonist of Journey to the West, Monkey King, this guy. You know, in Journey to the West, Monkey King is the protagonist. All powerful people basically revolve around him. Moreover, if you want to compete for luck in Journey to the West, absolutely no one can beat him. Zhou Yu knew that Journey to the West was actually a calamity in the wild. And Monkey King is the protagonist in this calamity. My own farm has just opened, and the first person to enter is this man of destiny. This is too lucky. However, if you think about it, if your luck is not good enough, how can you encounter such a good thing as crossing? Zhou Yu calmed down, and began to think in his heart. According to the rules of the system, as long as the luck of the employed is stronger, the output of the planting will be better. For a lucky person like Sun Wukong, if he planted ordinary corn seeds, what would he produce? He began to look forward to it. Immediately, Zhou Yu sat up from the futon, ready to trick the monkey into farming for him. Immediately, he walked out of the thatched hut and walked towards the field ridge. There, the monkey was standing there, holding a paddle in his hand, looking around curiously. And when he saw Zhou Yu appearing, he immediately dropped the oar in his hand, knelt down and shouted, "Meet the immortal elder! I beg the elder to accept me as a disciple." The monkey is very excited at this time. Just now, after he entered the crack, he felt his body lighten, and his eyes blurred. The next moment, he came to this place in front of him, which seemed to be a place where some crops were grown. But he didn't have the slightest contempt. Because he found that this place is very extraordinary. Surrounded by majestic peaks, there is a strong aura everywhere. Moreover, even the land under my feet is even extraordinary. It seems to be a special soil, which is actually rich in aura. In addition, there are singing birds and fragrant flowers, and gurgling water everywhere. The trees are next to each other in a patchwork pattern. There is also a small thatched cottage not far away. Although the thatched hut looked very simple, it was made of wood and hay. But located there, it complements the surrounding scenery and is very harmonious. And it is also the place with the most aura here. Evidently arranged with care. Even compared to my Huiguo mountain, it is not bad at all. Immediately, the monkey deduced in his mind. The place I accidentally entered must be some kind of fairy manor. And when he saw Zhou Yu appearing, the guess in his heart was instantly confirmed. But he saw that although this person looked very young, he was imposing and had an air of dust. What's even more powerful is that this person actually gave him a feeling of incomparable sacredness and no offense. With so many characteristics of a fairy, who is he if he is not a fairy? Monkey was sure in his heart that he had met a fairy. How lucky! Originally, he thought that immortality was hard to find, and he would have to travel all over the world to go to see, and it would take a long time to find immortals. Unexpectedly, it was only 1 month, after I left Huiguo mountain, I came to the fairyland without even docking the raft, and met a fairy. This must be an opportunity arranged by God for me, absolutely not to be missed. Immediately, the monkey dropped the oar and begged Zhou Yu to accept him as an apprentice. At this time, Zhou Yu was also looking at the monkey who kept kowtowing to him in front of him. But the hair on the monkey's body was still wet, and there was still a little sea salt in the hair on the head. There is also a bag made of bark hanging on the waist, and there is a fragrant fruit smell in it. Zhou Yu confirmed each of these characteristics. This monkey must have come here shortly after leaving Huiguo mountain to seek a fairy fate. Moreover, he had not docked before he came here. Otherwise, the sea water on his body wouldn't be dry, the fruit wouldn't be unfinished, and he wouldn't even be without a piece of clothing. Xian Chong, I am the Monkey King from the water curtain cave of Huiguo mountain in Dongsheng Shenzhou. When I came out this time, I wanted to find a teacher of immortal destiny and practice the law of longevity. I implore the elder to accept me as an apprentice. I will definitely work hard to cultivate, and repay the elder by being a cow and a horse. On the ground, seeing that Zhou Yu hadn't responded to him, the monkey thought it was because he hadn't introduced his identity and was not sincere enough. Quickly continue to mutter. Zhou Yu felt amused when he saw the foolish monkey kowtowing all the time in front of him. Immediately, he said, "Get up." Hearing Zhou Yu's words, the monkey immediately stopped kowtowing. Immediately, he jumped up from the ground, his eyes were round, and he asked, "Is the immortal elder willing to accept me as a disciple?" Zhou Qing was startled, recalling when he said this. Immediately shook his head and said, "I won't take you as an apprentice. When I came to see you, I thought you were here to apply for a job as a tenant, but it turned out that you were here to seek immortality and ask questions. I'm just a farmer, and I don't know how to teach longevity. You go." After saying these few words, Zhou Yu didn't stay any longer, and turned around to return to the thatched cottage. This action is of course fake. It was not easy for Zhou Yu to meet such a lucky person, and he was also the one with the most luck in Hong Huang. How could he let him go? To be honest, even if Monkey wanted to leave on his own initiative, Zhou Yu would not let him go. This Hongmeng farm is an independent space. If he does not open the entrance for him, it is impossible for the monkey to find the exit and leave. Zhou Yu's move is called playing hard to get. If the monkey asked for it casually, and he agreed to take him as a disciple, it would be too cheap. Moreover, the purpose of the monkey is to worship him as a teacher, but his goal is to let him farm for him. You must first achieve your own goal before you can meet the monkey's goal. Otherwise, if he agrees to take the monkey as his apprentice, the monkey stretches out his hands and asks himself what should he do if he wants the exercises? To give or not to give? If you give it, I now have a hairy exercise. If you don't give it, how can there be a master who accepts his apprentice and doesn't give him the exercises? Isn't that a liar? Therefore, it must be done first. After the monkey heard Zhou Yu's words, he also became suspicious. He saw fields all around him, and it was indeed a farm for planting. And the person in front of him should naturally be the owner of this farm. However, he felt wrong again. Obviously, the aura here is rich, and even the soil is rich in aura. The person in front of him is even more immortal, with a sacred temperament. When the monkey was in Huiguo Mountain before, he also heard those old monkeys talk about ordinary people among the human race. Those ordinary people are all yellow and thin, with dark faces. It's completely different from the person in front of me. Well, yes. Who said immortals can't farm? Don't immortals also need to plant spiritual grass and cultivate spiritual roots? Even if this person is a farmer, he is still a fairy farmer. The reason why he rejected him must be because he thought his sincerity was not enough. Only then did he pretend to be an ordinary farmer. From the monkey's point of view, this person in front of him is definitely a person with great ability, and only Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com can open up such a blessed land. If you leave here by yourself, the road ahead is boundless, and you don't know when you will meet such a fairy again. How can you miss it? Immediately, the monkey stepped up to catch up with Zhou Yu, pleading repeatedly, "The immortal elder stays behind, the immortal elder stays behind. Aren't you going to recruit tenants? I am born with great strength and I am close to plants and trees. I am willing to be your tenant." He also didn't know if what Zhou Yu said about recruiting tenants was true. But that's the only chance he has now. Anyway, they are all following the immortals, so being a tenant should not be much worse. Besides, only by staying first can I learn the art of longevity. Hearing that the monkey was willing to be a tenant, Zhou Yu's heart immediately became happy. Hee, my self-indulgent trick has been accomplished. He stopped, turned his head to look at the monkey, pretended to be suspicious and asked, "You are a monkey, do you know how to plant?" Hearing this, the monkey also panicked. He lives in Huiguo Mountain and eats spiritual fruits and spring water every day. How does he know how to grow them? However, he hastily replied, "I can learn." Hearing this, Zhou Yu made a deliberate look on purpose, and immediately said in a difficult way, "I didn't intend to use you. But since you want to be a tenant so much, then I will give you a chance, try it." Hearing that Zhou Yu was willing to give him a chance, Monkey was overjoyed. He quickly knelt down and kowtowed, shouting incessantly, "Thank you, immortal, thank you, immortal." Just at this very moment, ding! The host recruits the first tenant farmer and triggers rewards. Congratulations to the host, you have obtained the exercise, Star Transformation. Hearing 2 system prompts in succession, Zhou Yu was also a little startled, and was immediately overjoyed. Unexpectedly, he would be able to get a reward just after taking the monkey into the farm as a tenant. Moreover, this time the reward is the skill he is most looking forward to now. You know, this Star Transformation is a top-level skill from the world of Star Transformation. This technique, from ordinary people's introductory cultivation, can even open up the universe in the end, control the Dao, and become the master of the primordial realm. According to Zhou Yu's estimate, even in the world of Journey to the West, this skill must be a top-level existence. Zhou Yu can't wait to see the exercises now. However, he couldn't do it in front of the monkey to check the exercises. Immediately, Zhou Yu directly took out that the system rewarded him earlier from the system space, and threw it to the monkey. Immediately, pointing to the wasteland in front of him, he said to the monkey, "You turn over this piece of land first, and reclaim it. Attention, don't dig too shallow, it should be as deep as your arm. In addition, the overturned soil clods should not be too large, otherwise it will be difficult to sow seeds. Go, you can stay after you finish the reclamation and I pass the inspection." In front of him, the monkey was also surprised to see Zhou Yu's method of taking out the suddenly. When he saw Zhou Yu earlier, Zhou Yu was obviously empty-handed. Even if Zhou Yu wanted to hide it, he couldn't hide such a big on his body. As expected of a fairy elder, how could this method be comparable to ordinary people? Hozai was even more convinced of the identity of immortal Zhou Yu in front of him. After hearing Zhou Yu's request for reclaiming wasteland, he didn't think it was too difficult. Isn't it just digging the ground? What is the technical content of this? Immediately, the monkey picked up the and said confidently, "Don't worry, I will not let you down." After finishing speaking, he carried the to the wasteland and waved the to reclaim it. Pong! Unexpectedly, the monkey ran into difficulties just after swinging the first hoe. The dug in the wasteland, as if it had hit something hard, which made the monkey's arm ache. He found that this barren land was different from ordinary land, it was very hard, almost as strong as stones. My own knocked on it, making a sharp sound, and the tip of the only went in a little bit. You know, my strength is much stronger than the monkeys in Huiguo Mountain. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to become the Monkey King of Huiguo Mountain. A tree with a thick bowl mouth can be broken with just a light push. It is so difficult to reclaim this wasteland now. Only then did the monkey understand that reclaiming wasteland was far from as simple as he thought. But the more it was like this, the more he felt that this was the test given to him by the immortal head. As long as he perseveres and reclaims this wasteland, he will definitely get the approval of the fairy chief. Immediately, the monkey's heart became even hotter, and he worked hard to cultivate it. In just a moment, he was so tired that he was sweating profusely. On the other side, Zhou Yu, who had returned to the thatched hut, also began to observe the monkeys reclaiming the wasteland. But the monkey was buried in hard work, gritted his teeth and insisted on cultivating. Seeing this, Zhou Yu also nodded secretly. Very satisfied with the monkey's attitude. To be honest, Zhou Yu didn't know that the wasteland was so hard, and the monkeys were so tired of reclamation. More importantly, the monkeys have now initially become their own tenants. Next, just let him plant corn seeds and cultivate them for himself, and he should be able to get rewards. Zhou Yu is also looking forward to the fruits of the planting. At first he was still a little confused. If the monkey grows only ordinary corn after planting corn, then he has really been cheated by the system. At that time, not only will there be no gains, but the monkeys who can't get the exercises will also settle accounts with themselves. But the situation is different now. Just now he has obtained a piece of supreme Qigong, at worst he can use it to fool the monkeys. What I have to do now is to continue to hold the monkey. Only after the monkey completely believes that he is a fairy will he work hard to plant for himself. Only by yourself can you get more rewards. At that time, he will naturally not treat this monkey badly. Zhou Yu stopped thinking about it, turned around and entered the cottage. System, withdraw rewards. Zhou Yu directly issued an order in his heart. In an instant, a lot of information about exercises appeared in his mind. It is the cultivation method of star transformation. Zhou Yu originally thought that as a modern person, he had never been exposed to any cultivation methods, and it would probably take a long time to understand a cultivation method. However, it is not. Perhaps it was because the exercises came from the system. The moment the information surfaced, he understood the true meaning of it and began to try to practice it. Zhou Yu suddenly jumped up and made some strange movements inside the thatched cottage. This attempt made Zhou Yu a little embarrassed. Because, the basic skill of this star transformation practice is called Tian Tian Tu, and the cultivation requirement requires the acquired Dzogchen. According to the system prompts, it is equivalent to the completion of refining the gas environment of Journey to the West. But now he is just a mortal, and he hasn't even set foot in the introduction of refining and transforming Qi. Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com naturally cannot practice any effect. However, Zhou Yu was not in a hurry. After all, he was only on the first day of crossing, and to be able to obtain the exercises, in his opinion, it was already pretty good. Zhou Yu's heart skipped a beat. Maybe, as an introduction to cultivation, I still have to look at the effects of the farm crops. Afterwards, Zhou Yu finished his training and came to the wooden house. He found that the monkey was exhausted and paralyzed at this time, lying on the ground panting for air. And that piece of wasteland has only turned over a small piece. At this time, the monkey also saw Zhou Yu. He hastily stood up, started to cultivate again, and begged Zhou Yu at the same time, "Immortal head, I will work hard to plow the fields, please don't drive me away." Seeing the monkeys begging so bitterly, Zhou Yu really didn't have the nerve to refuse. Alas, who made him so soft-hearted? Monkey wants to cultivate the land so much, he can only help him. Immediately, Zhou Yu nodded and said nothing. Immediately, he turned around and returned to the hut to continue studying the exercises. Although I can't practice for the time being, it's always good to have a look first. Seeing that Zhou Yu didn't blame himself, the monkey was very excited. In his opinion, this is the meaning of the fairy chief's satisfaction with himself. You must cherish the opportunity, and you can't rest anymore. Immediately, he worked harder. In this way, time soon came to night. But the monkey never stopped plowing. It wasn't until it was completely dark and the farm became dark that the monkey put down and sat down on the ground. While wiping the sweat off his face with his hands, he looked at the beside him with surprise in his eyes. I don't know why, but it just looks like a very crude hoe. It has been plowed by monkeys for a day, but it has no wear and tear. The monkey knew that the wasteland he reclaimed was extremely hard. As for ordinary hoes, it is estimated that even if 10 hoes are used, 9 of them will be broken. But the given to him by the fairy head is so durable. It's really a thing from the Xian family, even is so good. The monkey couldn't help admiring, and then he glanced at the thatched cottage where Zhou Yu was. In the eyes, the firm look still did not retreat. He has now made up his mind to work hard to cultivate and gain the approval of the immortal. Then you can get the law of longevity. Thinking of the word longevity, the monkey's body seemed to be full of strength again. The fear of death and being controlled by heaven came to mind again. In the past, every time night fell on Huiguo Mountain, he would be shrouded in such fear. But it's different now. Now he is still afraid of death and heaven. But the difference is that he already has hope in his heart. This hope is naturally Zhou Yu in the cottage. However, he did not get up again to reclaim the wasteland. At the end of today, his physical strength and energy have been almost exhausted. If you continue to work, it will affect your ability to work hard for a long time. Although monkeys are only monkeys in Wukong Mountain, they also know how to combine work and rest. You must rest before you can work hard. So, he took off the bark bag hanging from his waist, took out a few big and round fruits from it, and ate it in big mouthfuls. The spiritual fruit carried by the monkey was picked from the fruit of Wukong Mountain. Wukong Mountain has been shrouded in a strong aura all year round, no matter whether it is an animal or a plant, it has been affected. After being nourished by spiritual energy all year round, animals will grow very strong, and their IQ will be much higher than ordinary animals. Plants such as fruits and vegetables will naturally grow better, be more vigorous, and have a longer survival cycle than ordinary plants. The fruit produced is not only plump and delicious, but also has the magical effect of replenishing essence. If not for this, it is impossible for the monkey to wander on the sea for a month just relying on some fruits. The fruit is still preserved so far. The monkeys only ate one or two, and more than half of the energy consumed by the whole body was replenished. Immediately, he leaned directly on the field ridge, closed his eyes and fell asleep. And Zhou Yu was also sleeping in the thatched hut. Hey! Hey! In the middle of the night, Zhou Yu rubbed his sore head and got up from the bed. He barely opened his eyes, and there was helplessness besides sleepiness in his eyes. This monkey, what is the respiratory tract made of, and the sound of snoring is so loud? To be honest, Zhou Yu has lived on the earth for more than 10 years, and he has never seen any snoring monsters. But when he encountered a monkey snoring today, he was left speechless. The monkey's snoring was like thunder, which made him unable to sleep at all. Squeak! Zhou Yu opened the wooden door, wanting to see the monkeys. But who knew, when he opened the wooden door, he discovered that there was a soft golden light on the field ridge not far away. This golden light is very faint, like the light of fireflies. Of course, Zhou Yu wouldn't think that this was a firefly. How could a firefly be as big as a sandbag? However, Zhou Yu was not afraid, and boldly approached the ball of light slowly. This is Hongmeng Farm, I won't get hurt here. So, when he got close to the sandbag-sized ball of light, he was stunned. Because he discovered that it was the monkey that emitted the light. The monkey was originally short and slept curled up. It looked like a sandbag from a distance. As for the sleeping monkey's snoring, it probably stopped because of the sound of opening the door just now, and Zhou Yu didn't recognize it before. Seeing that it was actually a monkey that was glowing, Zhou Yu was also stunned. What's the situation? Why does this monkey glow while sleeping? Could it be that he has excess energy in his body, and he vents it by emitting light when he sleeps? Zhou Yu continued to observe and found that the monkey seemed to have entered a certain state. Although Zhou Yu didn't know what this state was, he could be sure that it was definitely related to his Hongmeng farm. Thinking of this, he rejoiced in his heart. My Hongmeng farm is really extraordinary. He was looking forward to what would happen after the monkeys planted the corn. So, full of expectations, Zhou Yu returned to the thatched hut and slept peacefully again. When Zhou Yu opened his eyes again, it was already the next day, morning. Zhou Yu got up, and after washing up, he found that his food was gone. With a thought in his heart, he opened the wooden door and came into the world. After the monkey saw Zhou Yu, he was extremely excited, as if he had gone crazy. He ran directly in front of Zhou Yu and kept kowtowing, "Thank you, Immortal, thank you, Immortal." Seeing the appearance of the monkey, Zhou Yu also guessed it. The monkey probably got some benefit, so he thanked himself. He didn't know what the benefit was, so he could only say flatly, "Keep working hard to cultivate the land, if you fail the test, I can only drive you away." Hearing this, Monkey Chick nodded his head, "Don't worry, Immortal Elder, I will work hard and live up to Immortal Elder's wishes." After finishing speaking, he picked up the again and worked hard. Immediately, Zhou Yu also came to the reclaimed field and sowed the next corn seed. Immediately the use of chemical fertilizers. Immediately, the corn that had just been covered by the soil took root and sprouted instantly, and became luxuriant. Zhou Yu used another bag of chemical fertilizer, and the corn grew fruit again, and it ripened instantly. Just at this very moment, ding! Congratulations to the host for harvesting the first crop, reward, potato seeds x 10. Zhou Yu was a little surprised, he just wanted to fool the monkey. Yu reading www.yukanshu. I just bought some corn to satisfy my hunger, but I didn't expect to get rewards. And from this hint, it seems that after harvesting one crop, you can get the seeds of another crop. As for whether this is the case, we need to look at the situation later. At the same time, after seeing this scene, the monkey on the side was already dumbfounded. This. Zhou Yu laughed secretly in his heart, picked off a few corn cobs, turned around and returned to the thatched hut. After returning to his thatched hut, only then did Zhou Yu dare to express his joy and expectation. The reason why he was extremely calm in front of the monkey just now was naturally to prevent the monkey from seeing him through. Let the monkey feel that such a method is a normal thing for him, and it will deepen his confidence in himself. Zhou Yu held the corn in front of his eyes and began to observe carefully. I want to see if there is anything magical about the fruit grown by monkeys reclaiming the wasteland in Hongmeng Farm. But let him down. Even though he stared at the corn inside and out, he didn't find any difference in the corn. It looks exactly like an ordinary corn. If there is any difference, it is that it is bigger than ordinary corn. But this is not what Zhou Yu wants to see. For a moment, Zhou Yu was stunned. This system is not really cheating itself, is it? Zhou Yu began to doubt. In the end, with the last hope in his heart, he decided to boil the corn to see if there was any effect. Immediately, Zhou Yu put down the peeled corn, and immediately prepared the pots and pans. After putting the corn in the pot, he started the fire to boil the water. Although Zhou Yu's thatched hut is small, it has all internal organs. There are some things needed for daily life, but there is a temporary shortage of seasonings and so on. He didn't dislike it either, and started cooking directly. After all, he didn't cook this corn for eating, but to find out the effect of this corn. In this way, when the water in the pot boiled, a magical scene happened. The pot began to emit an amazing aroma slowly. The aroma is so strong that people will have a good appetite and spirit just by smelling it. Can't wait to eat it. As soon as this fragrance was born, it soon occupied Zhou Yu's thatched cottage, and flooded the entire Hongmeng farm. The fragrance is 10 miles away. Outside the thatched hut, the monkey who was plowing the field suddenly asked, and was shocked by the fragrance. I just feel that this fragrance enters my nose and enters my whole body, and all the cells in my body are alive because of this, as if I want to absorb this fragrance. What kind of food smells like this? It smells so good. It smells 10 times better than the spirit fruit from Huaguo Mountain. The monkey murmured in shock. He even temporarily stopped plowing the field and turned his gaze towards the thatched cottage where Zhou Yu was. Gulu. The monkey swallowed a mouthful of saliva, and his mouth was drooling greedily. If it is normal, according to the habits of monkeys, they have to drop the and go desperately to food. After all, something that smells so delicious must be more enjoyable to eat. But in this situation, I promised the elder to work the field. If he not only doesn't plow the field, but also runs in and grabs food with the immortal head. Immortal elder had to kick himself out on the spot. Compared with gourmet food, the monkey naturally values the practice of longevity more, although to be honest, he really wants to rush in now. But I still tried my best to restrain myself, and started to continue working. It's just that I can't help sneaking glances at the thatched cottage from time to time. In the thatched hut, Zhou Yu was standing in front of the iron pot, staring at the corn in the pot in bewilderment. To be honest, he was shocked. It is obviously a pot, some water, and a corn. Even if he was replaced by the top chef in his previous life to cook, Zhou Yu didn't believe he could cook anything. But now that's the way it is. This clear water corn tasted like a big dish after being cooked by myself. This fragrance is not inferior to any delicacy in my previous life. It's hard to imagine that this is just Qing Shui corn. After Zhou Yu was shocked, he immediately became ecstatic. Originally, he thought he had been cheated by the system, but after some tossing, he only produced an ordinary corn. Who would have thought that this corn is so hidden, without the slightest clue, and the magic will come out as soon as it is boiled in clear water. The system is really reliable, and it won't cheat yourself. Zhou Yu became more and more excited. I also began to look forward to the effect of the corn after being eaten by myself. After all, such miraculous corn grown by Hongmeng Farm must not be bad in efficacy. In this way, Zhou Yu began to wait anxiously. After a while, the color of the corn finally turned light yellow, and it was already cooked. Immediately, Zhou Yu fished it out, regardless of whether it was hot or not, and started to eat it. The entrance was very hot at first, and Zhou Yu was almost thrown out of the corn when it was so hot. But when the corn kernels are bitten into the mouth for the first time, after chewing, the hotness of the corn is immediately messed up. It's just corn that looks ordinary, but Zhou Yu's tongue is full of fragrance, and he can't stop. Zhou Yu even began to doubt, how could there be such delicious food in the world? Without adding any seasonings, it makes your taste buds overwhelmed. The skin of corn kernels can be broken by blowing bombs, and the teeth will burst when touched lightly. The corn meat in it is extremely fresh and tender, as if it has been processed by a master chef through 99 procedures. Too delicious! Zhou Yu calmed down slightly, and began to feel his body. He only felt that after taking a mouthful of corn, a warm current was born in his stomach instantly, and it was transported towards the meridians and pores of his whole body like a water pump. My meridians and pores have been scrubbed and become extremely comfortable. At the same time, Zhou Yu also felt a seemingly infinite force emerging in his body. He felt that his physique was improving rapidly. It's so cool! Zhou Qing couldn't help but make a sound. And at this moment, the system notification sound in Zhou Yu's mind also rang on time, ding! Congratulations to the host, the cultivation level has been upgraded to the early stage of refining and transforming gas. Hearing the notification sound from the system, Zhou Yu was stunned for a moment. Only after he felt the gradually growing power in his body did he dare to confirm that what the system said was true. After eating a bite of corn, his cultivation level has been raised to the early stage of refining and transforming qi. What kind of speed is this? It's not as fast as taking a rocket, is it? Immediately, he continued to eat. Zhou Yu couldn't stop eating, and gnawed on it regardless of his image. Immediately, there was another wave of warmth, and the system's notification sounded again, ding! Congratulations to the host, Yu reading www.yukansha.com's cultivation base has been upgraded to the middle stage of refining gas. Ding! Congratulations to the host, the cultivation base has been upgraded to the late stage of refining and transforming gas. Ding! A series of prompts sounded, and when Zhou Yu finished eating the corn, his cultivation level had actually been raised to perfection in refining and transforming qi. For a moment, Zhou Yu felt as if his whole body had changed, becoming extremely powerful and light like a bird. For a while, Zhou Yu was also very excited. Sure enough, my previous guess was correct. The things on the farm must be good things. After the excitement, Zhou Yu suddenly thought that since he had reached the perfection of refining and transforming qi, he should also be able to practice Tian diagram. So, he immediately tried again. This time, when he acted according to the content on the first piece of Tian map, he really felt different. Following his movements, the aura around him began to be drawn into his body, turned into a hot stream, and spread to his limbs and bones. There are a total of 36 movements on the first piece of Tian diagram. During the cultivation process, not only must the movements be accurate, but also need to pay attention to the changes of fast and slow rhythms. However, Zhou Yu has already mastered it, and it is completely handy to practice. For a while, Zhou Yu was completely immersed in cultivation. And just when Zhou Yu had just broken through his cultivation, the monkeys outside were also stunned. Because he actually heard the roar of dragons and tigers. The sky is bright, and there are thunder and lightning. He knew that this was definitely the cultivation of the immortal elder. Thinking of Zhou Yu's method of instantly ripening the corn before, he was shocked, and also strengthened his belief. You must stay. Zhou Yu's practice lasted for 5 full days. During these 5 days, he basically never left the hut, sitting cross-legged all the time. If you are hungry during cultivation, you can cook a piece of corn and eat it. The corn grown in this Hongmeng farm can not only improve strength, but also be very filling. In addition, Zhou Yu's current strength has reached the peak of refining gas, and eating 1 corn a day is enough. In this way, the time continued until the 5th day. Zhou Yu was practicing at this time, when suddenly a system notification sounded in his mind, ding! Congratulations to the host for completing the reclamation of the first piece of wasteland and getting a reward, Spring X1. Hearing this voice, Zhou Yu temporarily stopped practicing, and opened his eyes in surprise. After a monk enters the state of cultivation, he is basically immersed in the state of cultivation all the time, and it is difficult to feel the speed of time all the time. Otherwise, those powerful monks would not have practiced for hundreds of thousands of years. Zhou Yu just felt that he had been practicing. Unexpectedly, the monkey has already reclaimed a piece of wasteland by now. And the system even rewarded himself with a spring. Although the system only said it was a spring, Zhou Yu always felt that this spring was not simple with the magical corn in front of it. Immediately he stood up and walked out of the thatched hut, ready to see the situation of the monkeys outside the thatched hut. After opening the wooden door, he suddenly saw that the wasteland that had been reclaimed by monkeys a few days ago had been completely turned over. The overturned land was wet black and stood out against the vast expanse of wasteland around it. Immortal head, you are out of customs, I have already reclaimed the first piece of wasteland. The monkey also saw Zhou Yu coming out, and hurriedly waved to Zhou Yu to say hello, with an extremely courteous attitude. Seeing this, Zhou Yu also nodded to him in response. Immediately, Zhou Yu came to the wasteland reclaimed by the monkeys, and began to pretend to check. Seeing the head fairy inspecting the wasteland he had reclaimed, the monkey's heart suddenly became tense. He didn't forget what Zhou Yu said, after the wasteland was reclaimed, he could only stay after the fairy chief inspected it. In other words, if the immortal chief was dissatisfied with the wasteland he had reclaimed, he would still be kicked out. Seeing Zhou Yu's expressionless inspection, how could he not be nervous? The monkey stared desperately at Zhou Yu's expression, trying to see something that could reassure him. But Zhou Yu remained expressionless and checked carefully. This made the monkey feel more and more anxious, although the fairy leader has not yet announced the result. But the monkey felt that he was about to be kicked out. But fortunately, after Zhou Yu inspected the entire field, his complexion finally calmed down, and he said to the monkey, "Well, good job." As soon as Zhou Yu's words came out, the heavy burden in the monkey's heart suddenly fell, as if he had experienced a life-and-death battle, and his back was soaked. Immediately, his mood suddenly became excited, and he hurriedly asked Zhou Yu, "That fairy, can I stay?" This question is what he cares most about. After all, although the field he plowed agreed with the request of the fairy, it took a full 5 days. Hearing this, Zhou Yu thought for a moment, then nodded, "Well, you are considered qualified and can stay." Hearing this, the monkey's eyes widened, and he was so excited that he almost jumped up from the ground in joy. "Thank you, Immortal, thank you, Immortal. I will work hard in the future." The monkey happily knelt down and kowtowed to Zhou Yu, while still promising. Seeing the appearance of the monkey, Zhou Yu was also amused, and said, "Get up, you are my tenant now, there is no need to kneel down to me." Hearing this, the monkey stood up. Zhou Yu said again, "Since you are now my tenant, tell me your name." The monkey was a little embarrassed and said, "This, Zhou Yu said with a smile, "Could it be that you don't have a name yet?" Monkey nodded awkwardly, "That's right, I would like to ask the immortal elder to give me a name." Zhou Yu nodded and said, "In that case, why don't you call me Sun Wukong? Monkey King." The monkey followed Zhou Yu's name several times, but he couldn't figure out what it was, but he said happily, "Okay, I will be called Sun Wukong from now on." "Thank you for the name, Immortal Elder, I have a name now." The monkey was excited again. Zhou Yu looked at the scurrying monkeys and was also satisfied. Only then did he discover that the monkey's cultivation had improved a lot in the few days it took to plough the land. The current monkey has reached the perfect level of refinement and transformation of qi. It is estimated that it is because there is no exercise, so it is impossible to continue to the next step of cultivation. Seeing that the monkey's strength has improved so quickly, Zhou Yu was very satisfied, and secretly said, "Sure enough, my farmland is not ordinary, just farming can make people stronger." Zhou Yu's thoughts began to come alive. On the other side, after the monkey got excited, he couldn't wait to pick up the hoe, ready to start working. Seeing this, Zhou Yu pointed to the half-acre of land under his feet and said to the monkey, "Monkey King, you divide this land into 9 squares of the same size for easy planting." Immediately, he took out the corn seeds and handed them to the monkey, saying, "Plant these corn seeds." Hearing this, the Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com monkey nodded quickly, and carefully harvested the corn seeds in Zhou Yu's hand. "Start by placing the next one first in order." Soon the last block was seeded. In the soil of this square, Zhou Yu's previous corns were still planted. After planting here, the monkey raised its head and asked Zhou Yu, "Xian Chong, what should I do with this block?" Zhou Yu said, "Just pull it out and replant it." Hearing this, the monkey's face was startled, and he was very surprised by Zhou Yu's approach. After all, he had seen it before, the magic of Zhou Yu's corn must be some kind of high-level immortal plant. Wouldn't it be a pity to destroy it now? Seeing the monkey's reluctance, Zhou Yu shook his head helplessly, and could only give him a popular science, after the corn has grown once, it won't bear fruit again, and it's useless to keep it. After hearing this, the monkey understood. He lives in Huiguoshan, how can he understand this? Immediately pull out the corn stalks and resow. After finishing, he asked Zhou Yu again, "Sir, what are you going to do next?" Zhou Yu said, "Water." Hearing this, the monkey nodded and looked around to see where there was water. But after looking around, he didn't find any water, so he said, "Sir, there is no water." Zhou Yu pointed to a piece of ground not far away, and said silently in his heart, "Extract the spring eye." In an instant, the spring rewarded to Zhou Yu by the system before appeared on that piece of land. Gurgling flow. Seeing this scene, the monkey on the side suddenly widened its eyes, with an expression of disbelief. After Zhou Yu extracted the spring eye, he patted the monkey on the shoulder and explained, "You take water from this spring and use it to water the corn. It only needs to be watered once every evening. As for the rest of the time, you can reclaim the second piece of wasteland." Immediately after leaving the field, he returned to his thatched hut to continue practicing. But the monkey didn't notice Zhou Yu's departure, he just stood there in a daze, immersed in unbelievable emotions. It's unimaginable that a spring was created when the fairy had raised his hand. What made him even more unbelievable was that he found that the spring actually exuded a strong aura. This is actually a spiritual spring. The monkey knows how rare it is to see a spiritual spring. Spiritual springs are not the same as spiritual qi, but because the earth veins contain extremely rich spiritual qi, which are springs gathered on the ground. Taking a sip can not only speed up the cultivation speed, but also nourish the body, and has many mysterious effects. It is a rare treasure. Where Huiguo Mountain is so rich in spiritual energy, there are naturally spiritual springs. But it was formed naturally, completely different from the current situation. The method of this fairy elder is really unpredictable and unexpected. What shocked the monkeys the most was, after the fairy chief let out this spiritual spring, he let himself use it to water the corn. This is really too unbelievable. Is such a precious spiritual spring water only used by immortal elders to irrigate crops? How rich is that fairy elder's net worth to be so squandered? Shocked in his heart, the monkey came to the side of the Ling Chuan. Immediately, there was a strong aura rushing towards the face, refreshing. Smelling this strong and pure aura made the monkey's body feel instantly transparent. Immediately, the monkey couldn't bear the temptation, and directly poured some spiritual spring water into his mouth. Then the monkey was even more shocked. Once you enter the Ling Chuan water, you can't feel the texture of the water at all. It seemed that an extremely pure and rich aura was put into his mouth by himself, and it spread directly to the limbs and bones. Afterwards, the body was immediately filled with spiritual energy, and the whole body felt warm and very comfortable. It's so delicious. The monkey couldn't even help but start admiring. This spiritual spring water is not only highly effective, but also has a unique taste. The monkey felt that the spiritual spring water in Xianchong Farm was better than the best spring water in Huiguo Mountain. It even made his whole body exhausted all at once. Such a pure spiritual spring, I am afraid that even if it is compared with ordinary spiritual springs, it will be better. The monkey became more and more in awe of Zhou Yu. From the beginning of entering the farm to now, the monkey has seen various things that shocked him. These things made him feel more and more that the immortal he met was a very powerful immortal elder. If such a fairy elder can accept himself as a disciple, he will definitely be able to obtain the way of longevity. Monkey decided that he must work hard and learn skills from the fairy. Thinking of this, the monkey didn't delay any longer. Seeing that it was already evening, he prepared to water the corn seeds with spiritual spring water according to Zhou Yu's instructions. He took off the bark bag around his waist and put it into the spiritual spring to scoop water. The corn is then watered through bark bags. After working back and forth for a long time, the monkey finished watering all the corn. During this period, the monkey was very careful, for fear that the water from the spiritual spring would be spilled or poured down during the transportation. After all, in his opinion, this spiritual spring water is a very precious resource. Even if it is sprinkled with a drop, it would be a pity. After the busy work, the monkey began to observe the corn. He wanted to know, would the corn he planted and watered immediately germinate and grow like the one planted by Xianchong? However, the soil on the corn seeds was soaked by the spiritual spring water for a while, and then began to agitate slowly. It seems that there is something acting like a demon below. Soon, a tender green corn sprout broke through the soil and popped out. At the same time, there is also a faint fragrance of corn buds in the field, which smells very good. Seeing this scene, the monkey was surprised and delighted. I didn't expect the corn I planted to grow so fast. That's great. The monkey was full of a sense of accomplishment, and hurried to fill the water again to irrigate the other corn. Sure enough, these corns also began to take root and sprout. The monkey watched the corn in the field intently. In this way, he didn't leave until after dark, lying on the ridge of the field to sleep. After all, he also knew that he couldn't keep paying so much attention to corn. The fairy elder said, "Let yourself spend the rest of your time on reclaiming other wastelands, you can't neglect it." On the other side, after Zhou Yu returned to the hut, he began to practice the Tongtian diagram. After all, the monkey's strength has reached the peak of refining and transforming qi now. One's own strength must be stepped up to improve. If one's own strength improves and is not as good as the monkey's, then it will be a mess. However, at this moment ding! Your tenant farmer son Wukong completed a watering, and the reward item, Link's Yu step. Zhou Yu paused slightly. He didn't expect that the monkey could trigger rewards for himself just by watering the fields. He took a quick look, and found that this Lingxiu step turned out to be quite a good physical ability. Even before becoming an immortal, it was enough for him to use. Zhou Yu was very satisfied, even a little embarrassed. The monkey has been working on his farm for 2 days, and it has brought him so much profit, it seems that he should express it well. However, the most urgent task is to comprehend the importance of skills. Immediately, Zhou Yu began to comprehend this set of supernatural powers, and as a result, he fully comprehended in an instant, and began to display them in the thatched cottage. In an instant, a figure was seen in the whole hut, moving left and right, but Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com didn't touch anything. At this time, the monkey was already sound asleep in the field, but Zhou Yu was immersed in the joy of practicing skills. Of course, the sound of the monkey snoring at night can't affect him now. After all, with his level of strength, he can just turn off his hearing and turn a deaf ear to the noises he doesn't want to hear. In this way, the time soon came to the next day. After the monkey woke up from the field ridge, he immediately came to the edge of the field ridge where the corn was planted, wondering how far the corn seeds that had germinated yesterday had grown. But before he got close to the world, he saw a scene that shocked him. However, the field where corn seeds were planted yesterday turned out to be full of emerald green corn stalks growing to the height of half a person. Half-cooked corn has also grown on the corn stalks, and the smell is tangy. The monkey thought it was because he hadn't woken up and made a mistake, so he quickly rubbed his eyes, widened his eyes and looked again. After he confirmed that he read it correctly, he became happy. It's really the fairy family's method, Lingzi grows so fast. The monkey admired it. Immediately, he came to the Ling Chuan and took 2 mouthfuls of water from the Ling Chuan. After doing this, they don't eat anything, and start plowing the land. Unexpectedly, at 10 o'clock in the noon, the monkey couldn't hold on any more. Although he drank the spiritual spring water for a shock in the morning, his strength is now at the peak of refining and transforming qi. However, it is really a physical job to reclaim the wasteland of Xianchang's farm, and he is also a little bit overwhelmed, feeling hungry. He was hungry and drank 2 mouthfuls of spiritual spring water, but he was really not hungry at all. Just when the monkey was at a loss, Zhou Yu from the thatched cottage came out. Zhou Yu came to the edge of the cornfield and was very satisfied to see the corn growing to half the height of a person. Immediately afterwards, Zhou Yu used chemical fertilizers on a corn plant again. So, this corn plant matured again. After seeing the ripe corn, the monkey stared wide-eyed, his Adam's apple rolled, and he really wanted to eat one. But he dared not speak. But what he didn't expect was that the immortal seemed to know that he was hungry. He took the initiative to pick off 2 corn cobs and handed them to himself. Immediately, the monkey was moved in his heart. He hurriedly thanked, "Thank you, immortal elder." Zhou Yu just smiled and said, "You're welcome, you will have the strength to work when you are full." Then he took the remaining corn and entered the hut. Soon, the strong aroma of corn came out of the thatched cottage again. Today, Zhou Yu's strength has already broken through the refinement of qi and has reached the state of refining qi and transforming God because of his continuous cultivation and eating the corn grown in the Hongmeng dojo every day. After being promoted to this realm, Zhou Yu's physical strength has been greatly improved. Even eyesight, hearing, brain power, sense of smell, and sense of taste have improved a lot. It has completely exceeded the scope of ordinary people. So, when he peeled the corn and was about to cook it in the pot, he found it. The corn in my hand is a little different from the one I ate a few days ago. It's not just that the head has become bigger. And the color looks fresher, and the smell is more refreshing. Even Zhou Yu could see that a lot of aura was bred in it, which could nourish the body and increase cultivation. Zhou Yu was not surprised to find such a change in the corn. After all, the corn I planted a few days ago was not even watered. Fertilize immediately after planting in the soil to allow it to grow and bear fruit. But this batch is different now. Not only does it have a longer growth cycle, but it has also been watered by the monkey's spiritual spring water. I ended up fertilizing myself. You know, there is a lot of aura in the Lingchuan water. For plants, it is an absolute tonic. It is reasonable for corn to grow better. Zhou Yu is looking forward to the efficacy and deliciousness of the cooked corn. In this way, after a while, the corn in Zhou Yu's pot was cooked. Seeing it, Zhou Yu picked it up and began to taste it. After taking this sip, Zhou Yu felt extremely enjoyable. After the current batch of corn is cooked, it not only tastes more delicious than before, but even the taste of chewing has improved a lot. And the energy contained in the corn is also more than before. After feeling this, Zhou Yu was very satisfied. Sure enough, the overall quality of the corn irrigated by Lingchuan water is much higher than the original one. The spirit spring rewarded by this system is really useful. Immediately, Zhou Yu accelerated his eating. Soon a corn was eaten. After eating the whole corn, Zhou Yu's body was also filled with that pure aura. The organs, meridians, and even cells of the entire body are lazy and unable to absorb it. Immediately, Zhou Yu sat down cross-legged. Mobilize the aura in the body, let the body accelerate the refining, and absorb the aura. Immediately, a blue spiritual energy visible to the naked eye appeared on his body. The whole person has completely entered the cultivation state. Clothes without wind automatically. After a while, rub. Suddenly, Zhou Yu's aura reached a pass and increased suddenly. As soon as this aura came out, Zhou Yu's clothes were thrown into the air, and the long hair on his back was like a group of demons dancing wildly. Fortunately, because of Zhou Yu's deliberate suppression, this aura did not destroy the thatched cottage and the things in it. After a while, Zhou Yu's aura finally dropped and he returned to calm. Immediately, Zhou Yu also opened his eyes. Feeling a stronger body, there is excitement in the eyes. He murmured happily, I didn't expect that the corn watered by spiritual spring water would have such effects. I only ate one, and it allowed me to break through from the early stage of refining qi to the middle stage. This breakthrough speed is simply faster than riding a rocket. In this way, I have completed the cultivation of the first piece of Tongtian diagram. Next, let's go all out and continue to practice the second piece. After Zhou Yu was excited for a while, he calmed down. Afterwards, he began to practice the second piece of Tongtian diagram. He followed the posture in the second Skiriching diagram and began to imitate it. After the monkey saw Zhou Yu leaving, he didn't immediately recover. I have been immersed in the shock that Zhou Yu gave himself corn. If it was normal corn, the monkeys would not be so shocked. But he knows how extraordinary this corn is. After the head fairy took the corn back, the fragrance came out in a short while. That fragrance, even now the monkey still remembers it fresh and never forgets it. And he also knew that this corn-growing world contained aura, and the corn was irrigated with spiritual spring water. He was even given a spell by the fairy elder, so he could mature quickly. How could the corn grown together be ordinary corn? Now that they have just been planted, the immortal elder is willing to give himself too. This is how fancy yourself. The monkey thought to himself, and didn't come back to his senses until a moment later. He looked at the two big corns in his arms and smelled the aroma of corn. I was very excited for a while. Although he often smells the aroma of corn these days, he has never tasted it. Now is your chance. The monkey looked at the corn in his hand. Yu reading www.yukansha.com's eyes were blurred, and the glutton in his stomach was twitching. Immediately began to peel off the coat of the corn, and took a bite. Although this corn has not been cooked, it is also very delicious. Crunch! As soon as the monkey's sharp teeth bit the corn kernels, many streams of juice burst and shot out, all over the monkey's mouth. Immediately, the monkey's taste buds burst open like a budding flower bud. Delicious, tangy, delicious, and the feeling of deliciousness occupied the monkey's mind for a while, making him unable to stop eating. The monkey's big mouth gnaws continuously, and the cavity chews quickly. In less than a moment, a big corn was eaten. After eating, the monkey did not forget to check the gnawed corn cobs, and put the missed corn kernels into its mouth. It wasn't until he ate up a corn cob that he threw it away with more interest. Then, the monkey looked at another corn and wanted to continue eating. But even though he wanted to eat it in his heart, he found that after eating the corn just now, he was already full and full of strength, so he couldn't eat more at all. So, he temporarily put down the other corn in his hand. Then without delay, continue to find the hoe, come to the wasteland, and start to cultivate it. The monkey that ate the corn was as if it had been beaten with chicken blood. Between waving the hoe, it was no longer as strenuous as before. Thanks to the monkey's hard work, he managed to reclaim a third of the land in just one day. The speed has been greatly improved. Dusk. The monkey sat on the ridge of the field, looking at the fruits of his labor, very happy. He felt that if the immortal elder saw him again and saw that his work efficiency had improved, he would be very happy. Immediately afterwards, he went to scoop up water from the spiritual spring again, preparing to water the corn. However, when he scooped the Lingchuan water to the side of the corn field, he was surprised to find out there are worms growing on the corn stalks. On the bright green corn stalks, there are some dense holes. Although these holes are small, they can be seen with the eyesight of a monkey, and they are eaten by insects. Moreover, there are still some tiny flickering shadows in the hole, which must be bugs. Perhaps it was because the corn stalks were so special that even the bugs were attracted to them and began to eat them. Fortunately, the bugs are not serious now, they have not spread, and the corn has not been damaged. But even so, the monkey was still angry. What is the purpose of plowing the land, planting corn, watering, and pleasing the immortals so hard every day? Do you just want to make the immortal elder satisfied with himself, and then teach him the cultivation method of longevity? Originally, I did a good job, and the corn grew tall and big under my care. Now a group of worms suddenly appeared to eat the corn stalks. The corn stalk is the key to the fruiting of the corn, absorbing yin and yang, and providing energy for the corn. If you let them gnaw for a while longer, the corn stalks will probably start to rot and break. Then how to grow corn? I must get rid of these bugs. Immediately, the monkey did not rest. Start removing bugs. However, things did not go so smoothly. I don't know if it's because of eating the corn stalks grown in the field, these bugs have become treacherous and slippery. As soon as he saw the monkey's palm approaching, he quickly got into the inside of the corn stalk and never came out again. Coupled with their small bodies, they became even more difficult to deal with. It even bites. I don't even know what the mouth is made of. The monkey tried its best to catch one, but before it could be crushed to death, the worm resisted fiercely. One bite on the monkey's skin, secreting pain-inducing venom, making the monkey howl in pain, and quickly crushing the bug to death. Only in this way did the insects stop resisting. But even so, the monkey had only just wiped out one bug. But it took a long time. And judging from those holes, there are at least hundreds of insects on this corn stalk. If you continue to grab like this, before you finish catching, the corn stalks will probably be gone. For a while, the monkey was very annoyed and didn't know what to do. Glancing at the thatched hut, the monkey guessed that this must be the test given to him by the fairy head. Xianchong wants to see his ability to solve problems, let himself solve these bugs. As long as he can get rid of these bugs, he will definitely be affirmed by the fairy chief. Immediately, the monkey turned its attention back to the corn stalks. And it doesn't matter that it's night now. The monkey eyes widened and began to grab. In this way, the time continued until after midnight. The monkey finally caught all the bugs on the corn stalks. Under the starlight, the monkey stood up and stretched wearily, but his face was full of excitement. I don't know if the immortal chief will praise me after seeing me destroy the bugs. Monkey said to himself. Immediately without much delay, I lay down on the ridge and continued to sleep. At the same time, Zhou Yu, who was staying in the hut, suddenly heard the system's notification sound, ding. Your tenant, Sun Wukong, has finished killing insects. Get a reward item, the low-grade innate spirit treasure, Xianxiao sword. After hearing this voice, Zhou Yu was overjoyed immediately, and hurriedly stopped practicing. Immediately, he began to look at the spirit sword he had obtained. He ordered the system, extract the Xianxiao sword. The next moment, a flying sword with the length of an arm and the width of 3 fingers appeared in Zhou Yu's hand. Zhou Yu looked and found that the whole body of the Xianxiao sword was almost transparent pale gold. There is still a faint aura shining on the edge of the sword. Just by looking at it, it gives people an extremely sharp feeling, as if it can cut off all the hard feelings. After watching the Xianxiao sword, Zhou Yu became even happier. The monkey just got rid of the bugs, and the system actually rewarded him with a low-grade innate spirit treasure. It's so worth it. You must know that magic weapons can be divided into acquired and innate. Generally speaking, it is very rare for an ordinary monk to have an acquired spirit treasure. This low-grade congenital spirit treasure is even more rare. Even a strong man who has become a fairy may not be able to have one. I am only refining qi and turning into a now, but I have such a thing. If you encounter an enemy, it will definitely be a dimensionality reduction blow. Zhou Yu was very happy, so after putting away the Xianxiao sword, he walked out of the thatched hut, only to find out that it was already late at night, and the monkeys were all asleep. Then, he was surprised to find out. The light emitted from the monkey's body while sleeping has become stronger than before. Moreover, it has changed from the original pale gold to the current 5-color transformation, which looks very strange. Seeing this, Zhou Yu also knew that the strength of the monkey had improved. Originally, he wanted to praise the monkey, but the monkey was asleep, so he naturally didn't bother, turned around and went back to the thatched cottage. The next day, the monkey still got up very early and came to inspect the cornfield. But he was shocked to find out. Those corn stalks eaten by bugs yesterday. Yu reading www.yuuganshu. The status of calm is very bad. Early in the morning, all plants should be full of vigor. But the corn stalks that have been eaten by insects are so bare that there is no dew. And even the corn looks a bit bad. For a while, the monkey panicked. I thought it was another bug, so I hurriedly started to check. But found no insects. Looked down to see. It turned out that the roots of the corn stalks grew many weeds. Immediately, the monkey started pulling weeds. But it soon became apparent that these weeds were different from ordinary weeds. It's like being embedded in the ground, it's hard to pull out. And the leaves are very tough, like the tip of a knife. When the monkey was not careful, a cut was drawn on his hand, and blood flowed out. Seeing this, the monkey was amazed and said with emotion, "It's really different in the fairies' field, the weeds are so powerful." But he did not give up, but continued to find ways to weed. It didn't take long to discover a few tricks. Just find the right opportunity to grab the roots of the grass, and you can quickly pull the grass down. After working for a long time, he finally got rid of all the weeds. At the same time, Zhou Yu in the hut heard the system prompt, "Ding! Your tenant Sun Wukong has finished weeding. Reward skill for living, Sword of Breaking Heaven." Hearing another system prompt, Zhou Yu quit the cultivation state again. There is another reward? He immediately started checking the rewards. After discovering that Breaking Heaven sword art was exactly the kind of sword art he had in mind, he felt even more delighted.